kind of surreal. Is this really happening?
Here's Brooks, goes right at the defender. Oh my goodness!
And it's just going out there and just letting it all, letting it all go. This is what we prepare for. It's what we practice for.
I'm here to play golf and watch the Ducks win the national championship, Joe.
Here's a steal. Hold on to your head.
I don't think I could write a better script if both teams can make it to the championship game.
Good evening and welcome to the Road to Glory, or as they say in Glendale, the road ends here for the Oregon Ducks. They're hoping that road ends Monday night with a national championship, Orlando.
Joe, this is the scene. Beautiful shot of the University of Phoenix Stadium, a football field transformed into a basketball arena. We are down to 4.
Busy day today, all teams practicing, and we were able to see the Ducks and the Zags today.
Didn't it just have a different feeling today than it did the day before? You feel like you're getting closer, the emotion, the anticipation, it's cranking up a notch.
It is. Getting ready for tomorrow, big day. We're going to have some of the keys to the Oregon game tomorrow, also have some other fun stories too. We're going to talk to Peyton Pritchard and his father, and about how he played hooky as a kid watching this tournament.
Priorities, man.
Yeah, also a really interesting feature on 2 Portland players who are suited up for the Gonzaga Bulldogs for this Final Four. And we're going to have some fun with the fans, too. We play Let's Make a Deal. That's coming up. Plus, we're going to look back at the 1939 Oregon Ducks, the Tall Furs at the time, and their big victory in 1939 in the first ever NCAA tournament.
Man. They're due, right?
They are due.
They're due. 78 years.
Yeah.
Could this be the year for the Ducks? Well, I know that Laurel and Tracy have been working hard all day long. What is in store back in Portland?
Well, yes, guys. While you've been searching out the best Mexican food and doing a little sightseeing, Laurel and I have been doing some research back here.
We've been working really hard with our producers. For instance, did you know the stadium where the Ducks will play tomorrow is almost 4 times the size of the Moda Center? Or that Bing Crosby went to Gonzaga? We're digging up all sorts of fun facts tonight.
Brian McFadden and Cassidy Quinn are helping us out too. They are live in downtown Portland and Eugene, looking at all the best places to watch the Final Four, even if you aren't necessarily a Duck fan.
And we'll be back a little later with all of that and more, but let's send it back to Arizona. Joe and Orlando, take it away, guys.
We will see you soon, Laurel, Tracy. Thank you.
And this was the final tune-up that the Ducks have before the big game, before arguably their biggest game in a lifetime. So not only did they get that one final practice in, but we got one more chance to talk to the Ducks about their big game coming up against North Carolina. This isn't just a game for the Oregon Ducks, a chance to make history. The school's first championship since the first one, 78 years ago.
Not a lot of players or a lot of teams get to this moment in their 4 years, so it's definitely a moment you're going to soak in, and when you get older, you're going to look back at it, and when we just look back at it and be the national championship.
The lights, cameras, hoops in a football stadium. They're not just happy to be here.
None of us are satisfied with just making it here. We all have the same goal to try to win national championship.
The Ducks versus #1 seed North Carolina. Another program built on tradition.
Definitely, like a team like North Carolina, a school I really want to go to, Kansas. Just knowing that a lot of schools slept on me because I wasn't tall enough, I wasn't big enough, stuff like that.
Just play against a team that when I was young, it was like the team I rooted for ever since, and just be in the Final Four against them is going to be one heck of a dream.
Peyton Pritchard is the only Oregonian on the team, and it doesn't get much better than this, representing his home state on the big stage.
I really want to be somebody people look up to in the community of Oregon. Just coming from the state and playing for our state, and just hopefully I can win a championship for our state would be incredible and be a dream come true for me.
We're joined now by our John Canzano. And John, a lot of people have asked this question, can Oregon win the game? A lot of people think any of these 4 teams can win it.
Yeah, look, they're all here because they're good teams, right? But here's the thing for Oregon. Nobody thought they could win in Kansas City. Nobody thought they could win without Chris Boucher. They have continued week after week to prove everybody wrong. They get the #1 team, the #1 seed, North Carolina. They have a guy on the other side of this, Kennedy Meeks. He goes 6'9", 260. This is the best offensive rebounding team in the country, North Carolina is. So Oregon's going to have to do a lot right to win this game. They're going to have to shoot lights out, they're going to have to rebound, and they're going to have to change the tempo of this game game. They cannot get in a half-court game with North Carolina. They're too physical. The game on your screen has to be moving up and down for the Ducks to win it.
John, we're always looking ahead. We're always wondering what could be. And I know a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest are wondering, could this happen? Gonzaga and the Ducks for the national championship. You wrote about it today. What do you think?
Look, the two teams today, as Gonzaga was leaving the court after their practice, they walked right by Oregon. And I thought, hey, how about Monday night? We redo this. Like, let's meet Monday night.
Yeah.
These two teams have not played since 1999. It's been 18 years. I asked people today, why aren't you playing each other? You're both good. It would be great for strength of schedule. Gonzaga doesn't shy away from anybody. They played Arizona. They played Iowa State. They all stick their nose in. I think Oregon wants to play this game too. So I hope Monday night they meet for a national championship, and I hope they start playing each other every year. It would be a great Northwest battle.
John, the football team lost here to Auburn in 2011. The football team lost another national championship. Is this a season of success for the basketball Ducks if they lose to North Carolina tomorrow?
Well, look, getting to a Final Four becomes making it to college basketball players and to coaches. But when you have these opportunities, like you mentioned those two football opportunities, you have to seize them. You have to grab them. You can't get back here. You can't wait like 1939 to now. You can't wait another 78 years to get back here. So they got a great opportunity. They're knocking on the door. 351 teams, down to 68, down to 32, down to 16, down to 8, down to 4 who are going to play right here. Monday night, 2 left.
Who has to play well, John?
Oregon has to play well. I mean, the whole team has to play well. Yeah. Peyton Pritchard, who you got this great feature with him coming up, they need something special out of Peyton Pritchard. They need Tyler Dorsey to continue to shoot lights out. They have to rebound. Jordan Bell's got to be a force. Even though he is physically outmanned in there by this North Carolina team, he's got to be somebody that they think about on every trip down. And Dylan Brooks, we haven't seen him break out and have a huge game yet anywhere in this tournament. They need a big game from Dylan Brooks.
What happens to the Ducks either way after this season? Might some of these guys go pro?
I think getting to the Final Four really changed the dimension. Jordan Bell made money in that last game in Kansas City. I think he's gone. Tyler Dorsey's talked about going overseas. Dylan Brooks looked me in the eye in Kansas City. He said, I want to get to a Final Four. Well, he's here now. I think he would benefit by coming back for another year. But the wild card is they get Pritchard back. If they could convince Jordan Bell to come back for another year, they're bringing in Troy Brown, a 5-star, probably a one-and-done player. They could be really good next year.
Did they look loose today like they've looked the rest of the year?
They did, but it's hard to tell. I think the first 5 minutes of the game, we're going to look at them and we're going to go, are they a little wide-eyed? Today was about getting comfortable in a football stadium. I hate that we're playing this game in a football stadium, but the basketball game in a football stadium, they were getting comfortable, shooting on both ends of the court, looking at the depth perception, and I saw Tyler Dorsey. He appeared to be shooting well, so I think everything's okay.
All right, if you could redo your bracket quickly, who's your winner on Monday night?
Oh, I like Gonzaga to win the whole thing, but I would like to see Oregon and Gonzaga on Monday night. To heck with the Carolinas. Sorry, we're here to spoil your weekend.
John Canzano, always great to have you. We're going to be back with more, including you'll hear from Peyton Pritchard and his father, and a look at the Zags, the local Zags, the Portland boys on that Gonzaga roster. Back after this. Welcome back to Glendale, Arizona. Boy, basketball fans have a lot to look forward to in Portland. There's a lot of local flavor here this weekend.
Oh, yeah, and I think it starts with Peyton Pritchard. The pride of West Linn won 4 straight state championships. Not too many people can say that on the basketball court. All this kid does is win. He's a freshman, and he's in the Final Four. This is what he loves to do. Basketball is life for this kid. He has game. And we got a chance to catch up with his dad and kind of poke around and see, what makes Peyton Pritchard who he is today, and why is he such a winner? Here's what Dad had to say.
We always dream about it, but Peyton, since he's been a little kid, we'd keep him out of school so he could watch the NCAA tournaments. Him and I were talking about that the other day.
It was a big thing for me and my dad to watch it. Yeah, in high school when I couldn't get out of class, my teachers would put it on TV for me. So I've always, just been watching it, and you watch. This is where legends are made.
He's embraced it, man.
Yeah.
This is what he came to do. This is his dream. and he's seeing it happen as a freshman.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see how Peyton Pritchard does. And as John Canzano said, very important that he plays well.
Yeah.
You know, as you walk around University of Phoenix Stadium, you run into all sorts of interesting, well-known people. For us today, one of them, Ernie Johnson from TNT. You probably know him from the really fun NBA show he does with Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley. He was kind enough to take a few minutes to talk today about how much he enjoys stepping aside from the NBA for a minute to do the NCAA tournament.
There's just something about this whole event that shrinks the world a little bit. It brings people together. It has people who in offices might never talk to each other, standing by the coffee machine talking about whether they think Oregon can go deep or how Chris Boucher's injury is going to affect their chances, or who is South Dakota State. And so it's awesome, and I love that part of it. And there's nothing in the NBA or in any other sport that matches the emotion you see here, and that's why we love it.
Ernie Johnson's such a nice guy. If you haven't seen the 30 for 30 story on Ernie and his son, it's worth a watch. Just a beautifully moving story on his life, and you'll become an even bigger Ernie Johnson fan after you see that.
And Ernie lays it out so perfectly.
Yeah.
This is as good as it gets. And for people that don't know anything about the Oregon Ducks or the Gonzaga Bulldogs, this is time to catch up. And the West Coast is making people wake up.
Well, you mentioned it, Orlando. Not the only Northwest team are the Oregon Ducks. The Zags are looking to make school history this weekend. We're going to learn about some of their local connections, and as we go to break, we're going to share a story that was told today by Coach Mark Hughes. He took this team on a camping trip before the season.
He's calling them out.
And it didn't go very well.
The guys went on a little night walk, you know, and I was one of the guys who stuck back in the tent, and I was real comfortable doing that. But he's like he said, I'm pretty more comfortable walking in the streets than I would be out there in the wilderness.
I mean, you would probably call it camping, right?
I don't even know if I'd call it camping. I'd call it like soft. Going soft travel in the wilderness, you know, something along those lines.
That's what what did you learn about your dogs?
How soft they were, and Dana, it concerned me greatly at that time. I had no idea we were going to end up here.
You?
Based on my observations then, I would have put a lot of money that it wouldn't have happened.
He called them out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the players were calling it survivor camp when they went on this this little expedition that Mark Few called a light walk. You know, he's from Cresswell, Oregon.
Yeah, he knows all about
it. He loves the Northwest. Interesting point. If you're looking for a reason to root for the Zags tomorrow and possibly on Monday, there are two Portland players you may have heard of. Nigel Williams-Goss grew up in Happy Valley, and Silas Melson, who won 2 state championships at Jefferson High School. I was able to talk with both of them today in the Zags locker room. Silas, I gotta love the fact that you're rocking the Portland shirt.
Yeah, I had to bring this out. I mean, always repping, no matter where I'm at.
What is that?
It's actually a shirt that I stole from Nigel, because he's from Portland too, and I needed a shirt to represent today.
How nice is it to have Silas on this team with you from Portland?
It's been huge, you know, and again, just going back, I've known Silas, you know, since I was young, and, you know, having that friendship, especially being a transfer student, so I was kind of, you know, trying to acclimate myself to a new team, but having a familiar face kind of smoothed that transition. And then on the court, he's been a huge X factor for us, just everything that he brings from his athleticism to his defense, and really has grown in his leadership role this year, so it's been a pleasure to play with him.
Tell us a little bit about growing up in Portland, Silas.
I mean, obviously, I love growing up in Portland. It's always been a basketball city. I feel like we're overlooked, but we have a bunch of talent down there, a bunch of talent that nobody ever looks at. And, I mean, have a lot of people from Northwest in this Final Four right now. It just speaks dividends to how basketball is over there.
We have a great, you know, history in Oregon of great players, especially for the size of the city, from Terrence Jones and Terrence Ross and Kevin Love, and even going back to Damien and Salim Stoudemire and, you know, all these guys, Kevin Love, all these guys who've paved the way for us. You know, it's just great for us to, like I said, kind of carry on that torch and hopefully lay the foundation for the next generation.
You and Nigel talk much about growing up in Portland?
Yeah, I mean, we talk all the time about Portland stuff, all the Portland people we know. And, I mean, there's a lot of conversations, just what goes on in Portland. And I mean, how we're two Portland dudes that made it to the Final Four. I mean, Terrence Jones did it a while back, and I mean, that doesn't really happen that much, so you got to celebrate it.
A lot of Zag fans in Portland, Nigel. Do you have a message for them?
Just that we're going to do what we have been doing, you know, and I think we're going to approach these games with the same amount of confidence, the same amount of focus that we've, you know, come into the first 37 games with, and 36 times has proven to be successful, and, you know, we're going to give it everything we have to go get 2 more.
Shout out to Portland. It's my city, Northeast, always.
Yeah, these guys love Portland, and that was clear tonight. And Nigel talked about how his 2 childhood friends from Happy Valley are here with him, how close they are, and I know Silas has a lot of friends and family from Portland here too.
Joe, this is another special class when it comes to local basketball players. And we could look back on these guys and say, wow, that was the next generation of kids that set the standard for hoops in the Pacific Northwest.
Orlando, we talked a lot about how big this stadium is.
Yeah.
We're about to find out.
Yeah, it's massive. It's supposed to be for football, and they're playing basketball in it. Our Laurel Porter and Tracy Berry did some digging around. Guys, what'd you find out?
Well, thank heavens for Google. That's all we can say. But there are definitely no shortage of superlatives for just how big this stadium is. It can hold almost 4 times as many people as the Moda Center. We'll see just how impressive it is coming up.
That's hard to imagine, isn't it? Also, we all know about some of the athletes who played at these Final Four schools, but some other big names surprised us. So we let them get competitive. Who will win our famous alumni Final Four?
And one Final Four school was actually closed to become a hospital for a little while. We have something you may not know about all 4 schools. And as we go to break, we leave you with one of Oregon's best highlights of the year.
That's right, knocked off by Oklahoma and Buddy Hield. Look at this guy.
To have that many fans and, you know, once in one place, you know, a football stadium for a basketball game is insane.
Yeah, it is. It sure is impressive, isn't it? The Ducks and North Carolina will tip off in what's normally a football stadium.
It's huge. The University of Phoenix Stadium regularly seats more than 65,000 people for the pro team down there, the Arizona Cardinals, for their games. But it will have more than 76,000 on hand tomorrow night for basketball. So how big is that? Well, almost 4 sellout crowds for the Blazers at the Moda Center. That seats 19,000 plus for basketball.
If every student at the U of O wanted to go to this weekend's games, they could fit in the building times 3. Enrollment at the start of this school year was 23,634.
This stadium is so big. How big is it? Well, it could host entire cities, including 2 Lake Oswego's, which only has a population of about 38,000.
Okay, I won't say that's huge, right?
Please.
Well, now we want to look at famous Final Four alumni. And in the spirit of the tournament, we're matching up the schools against each other.
If you base it on former basketball players, well, let's just be honest, North Carolina would win hands down. You may have heard of a guy named Michael Jordan. He was pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say, but what about non-athletes? Let's check out the bracket, starting with the matchup between Oregon and North Carolina. The 11th President of the United States, James Polk, was a North Carolina Tar Heel. He graduated in 1818. But they also count actor Andy Griffith and even former Portland Police Chief Charles Moose as alumni.
The Ducks counter, though, with a pair of businessmen who've done okay for themselves. Nike founder Phil Knight and Columbia Sportswear CEO Tim Boyle.
Sorry, Ducks fans, it's really hard to beat a former president. North Carolina moves on to the alumni finals.
On the other side of the bracket, did you know Gonzaga was the college home for one Bing Crosby, along with former Washington Governor Christine Gregoire?
South Carolina can claim longtime Senator Lindsey Graham, and it was also the birthplace of Hootie and the Blowfish.
I'd say this one's a toss-up, but our producers love making us say Hootie and the Blowfish.
So who is our grand alumni champion? I think it's pretty debatable. I mean, I personally think Phil Knight and Bing Crosby are big deals.
I know I had to protest because our producers went one way and we argued the other way, but our producers say it's really just tough to say no to a U.S. president. Besides, President Polk made the deal for the Oregon Treaty, securing the land that is now Oregon for the U.S. So without him, we might not be here.
Well, there is that. So hail to the chief in North Carolina off the basketball court, at least.
Well, these Final Four schools have more than 700 years of combined history. The University of North Carolina is the oldest of the 4 schools. It opened in 1795. It's one of 3 schools that claim the title of the country's first public university, but it's the only one that gave degrees before 1800.
Well, there will be a quiz, so please follow along here. The University of South Carolina opened in 1801. But actually closed for several years during the Civil War. The campus got transformed into a Confederate war hospital, and Union Army members left it alone when they took Columbia.
You feel like you're back in history class, Tracy?
Yes.
Well, out here, the University of Oregon opened in 1876 after several fundraising efforts by citizens in Eugene to get the first buildings built. The first enrollment class at Oregon was 155 students being taught by 5 teachers.
And up in Spokane, Gonzaga University opened in 1887, founded, of course, by Jesuit priests. But did you know it is named for Saint Aloysius Gonzaga, who fittingly is the patron saint of young students.
Well, coming up, we are taking a trip through time. We'll go back to the days when people knew the Ducks as the Webfoots or the Tall Furs, including rare footage of their 1939 championship. Plus,
let's make a deal. Do you have a $50 bill?
Oh, this is why we don't let Joe out much. You want to play a game, Oregon fans? Joe Donlin has a little fun in Arizona with a Ducks-themed version of Let's Make a Deal.
You know, it's pretty interesting is that I'm live at the River Pig, Brian McFadden. This place is going to be popping tonight, but come tomorrow, 5:49 tip-off between the Ducks and North Carolina Tar Heels. It's going to be crazy. When we come back, I'm going to take you to some of the hottest watch parties. Well, not take you anyway. I'll tell you where to go anyway.